Martin Lings, the Muslim philosopher from England. For lovers of biographies of the Prophet Muhammad, the name Martin Lings certainly doesn't sound foreign to the ear. One of his books, Muhammad, his life based on the earliest sources, has become one of the best-selling Islamic history books of all time. Since its publication in 1983, the biography of the Prophet Muhammad is still in print today. Martin Lings is not only the author of a famous Islamic book, but also a famous Muslim philosopher from the West. Not only is it great, Martin Lings' background and life also contain many interesting facts. Reported by Accurate.co, from various sources, here are 5 interesting facts about Martin Lings. 1. A convert. Martin Lings was born to a Protestant family in Burnage, Lancashire, England in 1909. Lings only converted to Islam when he was around 31 years old. At that time, Lings decided to convert to Islam after visiting one of his friends, namely Frithjof Schuon, who lived in Egypt. At that time, Schuon happened to work as a lecturer at Cairo University, as well as an assistant to the famous French philosopher and convert to Islam, namely René Guénon. However, while visiting Egypt, Schuon died in an accident. As a result, Lings was asked to take Schuon's place at Cairo University. Since then, Lings began studying Arabic, Islam, and Sufism. After that, Lings felt that Islam was not only a religion, but also a guide to human life. Since then, Lings decided to convert to Islam and changed his name to Abu Bakr Siraj ad-Din. 2. Received education in English language and literature and Arabic. Lings is recorded as having studied English language and literature at Clifton College and Magdalen College, Oxford. Even while studying at Magdalen, Lings was good friends with the famous English writer C.S. Lewis. Then, after getting his bachelor's degree, Lings moved to Europe and taught Anglo-Saxon and Middle English at Vytautas Magnus University in Lithuania. Then, around 1952, Lings returned to England and studied Arabic at the University of London. It was at this university that Lings earned a bachelor's degree and a PhD. Even Lings's thesis, which discussed one of Algeria's famous Sufis, namely Ahmad al-Alawi, became the basis for one of his famous books, namely A Sufi Saint of the 20th Century. 3. Spent 30 years of his life writing books. For approximately 30 years, Lings was known as a book writer and very active teacher. Lings is recorded as having published at least 18 books during his lifetime. Some of Lings' famous books include Muhammad, his life based on the earliest sources, 1983, Shakespeare in the Light of Sacred Art, 1966, Quranic Art of Calligraphy and Illumination, 1976, and A Sufi Saint of the 20th Century, 1993. In fact, his biography of the Prophet Muhammad is considered a masterpiece and the best biography of the Prophet Muhammad in the world. 4. Shakespeare lover. Lings could be said to be a fan of one of the world's greatest writers, William Shakespeare. Apart from being involved in the field of Sufism, Lings is also an active fan of Shakespeare's works. Lings' contributions to the study of Shakespeare's works are numerous. Even while still in Egypt, Lings taught English at Cairo University and often performed plays by British poets. Not only that, several of his books such as The Secret of Shakespeare, his greatest plays seen in the Light of Sacred Art, 1998, and Sacred Art of Shakespeare, To Take Upon Us the Mystery of Things, 1998, are considered books who succeeded in studying the meaning of Shakespeare's works and spiritual aspects. 5. Once expelled from Egypt. For Lings, Egypt has become his second home. For more than a decade, Lings lived with his wife Leslie Smalley in Egypt. However, before Abdul Nasser's revolution reached its peak, various anti-British protests were rampant in Egypt. 3 of Lings' colleagues at that time even died because of the bloody protest. As a result, around 1952, Lings and his wife were forced to leave Egypt and return to their hometown in England. Those are 5 interesting facts about Martin Lings. author of the most famous biography of the Prophet Muhammad. Not only is Lings a genius, he is also a religious man. Martin Lings, God's guidance for the poet. Mentioning the name Abu Bakr Siraj ad-Din, perhaps not many people know him. When the name Martin Lings is mentioned, of course only some Muslims know about it. However, for most students, researchers and Muslim figures, the name Martin Lings is very popular, because his writings and works are able to inspire many people in studying Islam. In fact, the author was once a devout Christian. Thanks to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he embraced Islam and became a convert. One of his phenomenal works is entitled Muhammad, the life story of the Prophet based on classical sources. Muhammad, his life based on the earliest sources, published in 1983. This book, which contains a biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is dedicated to the leader of Pakistan, Zia-ul-Haq. With a narrative style, speaking, that is smooth and easy to understand, Martin Lings is able to present a life history and journey of an inspirational figure for the world, namely, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wrote it in great detail and was amazing. By many circles, this book is considered to be one of the best biographies of the Prophet Muhammad ever published. Of course, only someone with special abilities can produce a quality and touching book. That's what Martin Lings did because of his love for Uswatun Hasana, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many readers have praised the work of this British scholar. People call it a tour de force, a work without equal. Written from the perspective of a scholar historian who also practices Islam on a daily basis, the book quickly became famous and became one of the mandatory readings about the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This book has been translated into 10 languages and received a number of awards from the Islamic world. Professor Hamid Dabashi from Columbia University expressed his admiration. When reading the book Muhammad by Lings, we will be able to feel a kind of chemical effect on the narrative and language composition, combined with the accuracy and passion of the poetry. Lings is a scholar poet, he said. Apart from the book above, Martin Lings' name is also widely known from his various other works. These include translations of Islamic texts, poetry, art, and philosophy. From his writings, Lings is often compared to the Swiss-German art researcher, Titus Burckhardt, the immortal French philosopher and metaphysician, René Guénon, as well as the German scholar, Fridtjof Schuon. Martin Lings is very synonymous with a Sufi who was persistent in spreading Islam in the West through his sharp and critical writings and articles. However, the most impressive thing about Lings is the connection between the work and its spirit of ihsan, beauty and brilliance. He pours his soul and heart into producing work that is inspiring, clear, and high quality. Now the character is gone. On May 12, 2005, Lings breathed his last breath at the age of 96 at his residence in the Westerham area, Kent County, England. Muslims around the world are mourning the death of this leading modern Sufi poet. Coming from a Protestant Christian family, Lings was born in Burnage, Lancashire, England, on January 24, 1909. However, he spent his childhood in the United States, following his father. When the family returned to England, he was enrolled at Clifton College, Bristol. Then, Lings continued his education at Magdalen College, Oxford. He studied English literature and obtained a BA in 1932. In 1935, he decided to go to Lithuania to become a lecturer in Anglo-Saxon and Middle English studies at Kaunas University. Getting to know Islam. In 1939, Lings came to Egypt to visit a close friend who happened to teach at Cairo University. This friend was also an assistant to the French philosopher, René Guénon. However, during his visit, his friend died in a traffic accident. Then, Lings was asked to fill the position left by his friend. He accepted the offer. Lings also began to actively learn Arabic and study Islam. After coming into contact with the Sufi teachings of Sadzi Lilia, he decided to convert to Islam. Since then, he has become a new person with the name Abu Bakr Siraj ad-Din. For Lings, Islam is not just a religion. Islam is a guide to life for mankind. He was very impressed with the Quran and the person of the Prophet Muhammad. For him, there is no figure who surpasses the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, both in his morals and personality in everyday life. Therefore, his book entitled Muhammad, The story of the Prophet's life is proof of his love for the Prophet Muhammad. His commitment to Islam carried throughout his life. In fact, 10 days before he died, Lings was still a speaker in front of 3,000 visitors at the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu birthday event entitled Uniting for the Prophet, which was held in Wembley, England. Lings said it was the first time he had spoken about the meaning of the life of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu in 40 years. After converting to Islam, Lings became closer to René Guénon, who had also converted to Islam. He then became Guénon's personal assistant and spiritual advisor. While living in Egypt, he married Leslie Smalley. The two of them then lived in a refugee camp near the pyramids. However, when an anti-British revolution by nationalists that led to riots hit Egypt, Lings decided to return to England in 1952. Upon returning from this country in the African region, he continued his education at the School of Oriental and African Studies, London, until he received a doctorate degree. His thesis was about a famous Sufi from Ajazia, Ahmad al-Alawi, which he later published as a book with the title, A Sufi Saint of the 20th Century. Meanwhile, his wife, who works as a psychotherapist, works in her field. Then, in 1955, he worked as an assistant expert on ancient manuscripts from the Eastern region at the British Museum. He carried out this work for almost 2 decades. In 1973, Lings worked concurrently at the British Library, where he focused his attention on Quranic calligraphy. Several years later, he published his classic work on the same subject, namely, The Quranic Art of Calligraphy and Illumination, to coincide with the 1976 Islamic World Festival. Since then, Lings has started writing regularly. His works, apart from Sufism and other books, include articles on Sufism in Cambridge University publications, Religion in the Middle East, and The 11th Hour, The Spiritual Crisis of the Modern World in the Light of Tradition and Prophecy, as well as many articles for Quarterly Journal, Studies in Comparative Religion. This journal contributed to broadening the horizons of the Western world in understanding the heights of Islam. Admirer of Shakespeare. Apart from working in the field of philosophy, Lings is also active in the field of art. His initial work in the arts began in 1944 with the production of Shakespeare's plays. The players are none other than his own students. He really enjoyed studying the poet's works. His interest in Shakespeare's works then led him, around 40 years later, to write a book entitled The Sacred Art of Shakespeare, to take upon us the mystery of things. As a form of appreciation for Lings' works, the British Crown Prince Charles was willing to provide a foreword to this book. In his foreword, Prince Charles wrote, Lings' special genius lay in his ability to deliver, as no one else had done before. The basic texts he presented in this theater work have left a deep impression, not only on art lovers, but also on ordinary readers.